Verzeo. Learn here, lead anywhere. Subscribe to our Verzeo channel and tap the bell icon to receive all notifications. Download the Verzeo app and get free content access.
Hi, good morning. Am I audible? Anybody can raise their hands and say if I'm audible.
Pratik, yes, you're audible.
Okay. Uh, right. We will wait for another for a few minutes to see if more people will join in. First of all, very good morning. Good morning, Shrija. Good morning to everyone else. Romit, very good morning, and welcome to the third episode of our GMAT webinar series. For those of you who have come here today the first time, we have had two more episodes. Right. First one was the overview of GMAT. Second one was simplifying it, and the third one, which is today, where we're going to discuss about the strategies for GMAT. That is part one, and the next week we would have part two. So for those of you who are here the first time today, um, you can make use of the YouTube video that has been published on the Versio page. So please take the access for it so that you can make use of it if you have not till now. Let me quickly introduce Romit. I have done that. I've done the same in the first time as well. But just to let you know, he's had about 14 years of experience in technology consulting and leading on enterprise products. About a decade in the United States. Currently, he's the director of product management at Riversand, and he's been in the product management manager field and partly for some time as a programmer analyst in different companies such as BP, CME Group, Sears Holding Corporation, and Persistent Systems. So, for those of you who've already been here, Romit needs no introduction. Very comfortable to reach out. Like I said, let's follow the same system. You can post your questions on the chat box and we'll take them at the end of the session as and when Romit comes across that part in the discussion. Over to you, Romit. I think we have had more people coming in already, and without wasting any time, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Pratik. Good morning and welcome to all of you. So as Pratik said, today is the third webinar in our series of webinars that we are having. And the third webinar is divided into, in some ways, 3A and 3B, part one and part two, rather, strategies for the GMAT. So what we are going to do today is we will discuss some very high level prep strategies. Think of it as, let's say, looking at things from, let's say, 30,000 feet. And in the subsequent webinar, in the next one, we will get into more details, in-depth strategies, let's say at a 3,000 feet level. So this will be a good primer for those people who have not attended the previous webinar, right? I always tend to give give an introduction to the GMAT and what it is, right, in my first slide. So with that said, I'll run through my slide in about 45 to 50 minutes, and with the remaining time, we'll take some questions as you keep posting them on the chat. Okay. So let me share my screen. So let me know if you are able to see the screen. Pratik, somebody, can you confirm?
Yes, the screen is visible.
Great, great. So let's get started. So as I said, even if you haven't attended the previous two sessions, this is sort of a one-slider that will give you an overview of the GMAT exam format. So as you can see, it has got four sections: the analytical writing assessment, the integrated reasoning, the quantitative, and the verbal section. The AWA is basically one essay where you are given to analyze an argument. You get a duration of 30 minutes and it's scored on a scale of 1 to 6. The integrated reasoning is a sort of set of 12 questions, different kind of data analysis kind of question. They call it two-part analysis, multi-source reasoning, graphical interpretation, table analysis. So you'll be given a pie chart with some data, along with a table, along with sort of a bar graph, all showing different parts of, let's say a financial statement of an organization, and you have to put it all together. Not that you need to know the P&L statement or any finance knowledge, but basics of sort of whatever is given in the question, that will be enough for you to understand and answer them, right? So that again is 30 minutes, scored on a raw scale of 1 to 8. Now, it is important to remember that the AWA and the IR, these two sections, although they are compulsory, you have to take them, and you do get a score. They do not count towards your score of 800. I repeat myself, they do not count your score towards your score of 800. So that brings me to the next two sections, the quantitative and the verbal sections. These are the only two sections that count towards your score of 800, right? The quantitative is 31 questions. There are two types of questions that you will get on the quantitative section. One is the problem solving, and one is the data sufficiency, and you'll get 62 minutes for that entire section. So that means 2 minutes per question. And remember, you cannot skip any question in GMAT, right? If you have taken other exams before, let's say CAT or even GRE, you are allowed to skip question and come back to it. You cannot skip a question. You have to solve it within the stipulated time of 2 minutes, less than that. And even if you cannot solve it, the best strategy is to just take a best guess and move on, because you don't want to lose out on other questions, right? So so verbal is 36 multiple choice question. There are 3 types of questions on verbal: the reading comprehension, the critical reasoning, and sentence correction, right? So it's about 65 minutes. That gives you a minute and a half per question. Some people might think that it is less, but don't worry, the GMAT has evaluated students' ability, and they have come up with these timings. So given the right amount of practice and the right kind of practice, 1.5 minutes is more than what you need. So this again is scored on a raw scale of 6 to 51. So 51 is pretty much the max that you can get, right? So that gives you a primer of how the GMAT exam is formatted. So again, quantitative and verbal are the two, the adaptive part of the test that also contributes towards your score of 800. The AW and IR do not contribute towards your score of 800. That does not mean that we don't focus on it. There are, I've spoken about it in a previous webinar, why these two are actually important. Okay, so moving on then, I wanted to take a poll of our current audience. Like, when do you plan to take the GMAT? Like, if you are like considering that we are doing the webinar today, when is it that you guys are planning to take the GMAT from this point onwards? In 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, or you still haven't decided? I see 21 responses come in. Is that all? I would encourage you to just take your best guess and move forward. Let us close the poll. Okay. Let me share the results. Okay. There is nobody in the 0 to 3 months category, which is okay. This is fine. And the next slide talks about it. Perfect. So not a problem. So in 3 to 6 months, you've got 4 people. 6 to 9 months, about 4 people. Yeah, 4 people, 17% each. Not a problem. I think you guys have pretty much made up your mind that you're going to take the GMAT. I'm not even bothered by the undecided people. I mean, that's fine. If you still aren't sure, you're on the fence about whether you want to take the GMAT or not, it's perfectly fine. It's the 13% people that are thinking about taking it in. I mean, they have made up their mind, yet they want to take it in 9 to 12 months. That is a bit worrisome for me. That is a bit worrisome for me, because in 9 to 12 months, today is March, right? So you are looking at taking the GMAT sometime between, let's say, October and December. Now, if you want to take the GMAT between October and December, it's okay. But then that means you probably, if you want to apply to American Business School, you probably won't get enough time to apply, send in your applications by round 2, which is the preferred, which is what we prefer for Indian candidates applying to American universities. If you want to apply to, let's say, the Indian School of Business, IIM A, B, and C, it's okay. But if you have American business schools in mind, then you might be cutting it too thin. Basically, it's going to be too late for you. So just rethink that strategy. I'm just saying, if you are in the 3 to 6 month space, 6 to 9 month space, you're fine. If you are undecided, well, I guess it's time to decide, right? But don't delay your GMAT date to October, December timeframe in those 3 months, because even if you get a good score, your good score won't help you much, because you'll be pretty late for let's say round 2 of applications, right? So let's move on then. So this is what I was saying. Okay, now you have to, once you have decided that you are going to take your GMAT anywhere between, let's say, 3 to 6 months or 6 to 9 months, once you have decided that you're going to take the GMAT, right? The best thing to do is book the GMAT date. Why am I saying that? I have often come across many of my friends, juniors, my students, where they think that they'll first prepare, and once they feel confident about their preparation, then they're going to book their GMAT date. I mean, you could do it to a certain point, but I've seen that they keep on postponing their GMAT date. I mean, they feel that they're never prepared, and I mean, the GMAT date gets postponed till eternity. Why is that happening? Because they haven't booked their GMAT date, they are not in an urgency to study, right? So they are not putting in the kind of effort, a systematic study plan and effort to meet that deadline. Instead, what they're doing is they're doing whatever they can to prepare, and then take a shot at finding out when they can make it, right? So that's not a right strategy. Book your GMAT date, because then that plays on in your mind, saying that, okay, I have a date, I need to commit to it, and let me start preparing right away. So that commitment is really important. Now, if there are 2 types of students, of course, I don't know how many of you are retakers, but for first time takers, as I was saying, 4 months of prep is what you should be looking at. There's no right answer to this. Some people might require, I've seen people getting a 770 with 15 days of preparation. I've seen people getting the same score with, let's say, 6 months of preparation, right? Or not getting the same score. It depends. Your journey is going to be unique. So try to, but about 4 months is what I find most students sort of devoting. So that is pretty much the average. So how to study in those 4 months? Well, at a very high level, try to devote about 2 hours every day and 4 hours during the weekends. Now, many of you are working. I know sometimes it's not always possible to sort of get that time, right? Make time for the GMAT preparation, but whatever you can manage. But don't, if you're studying with us, if you're studying somewhere else, if you're taking help from a senior, right? Doing a personal coaching, never, let's say, if you have your classes on Saturday and Sunday, and I tell it to all my students, it should not be the case that you are studying with me on Saturdays and Sundays, and there's a complete silence, radio silence during the weekdays, because then you'll be back to square one, right? You need to keep practicing, and you need to stay in touch with whatever you have practiced. At least, even if you cannot make 2 hours, make 1 hour, right? So stay in touch and keep practicing, and that's well, 2 hours is ideal, but whatever you can make. Retakers, of course, GMAT allows you to retake the exam. If you're not satisfied with the results, with your initial score, you can take it in 16 days. But that's just a, let's say, official formality. Doesn't mean that, let's say, if you haven't got a good score and you deep dive, do an analysis, and you find out that there's much to improve, you cannot make that improvement in 16 days, right? So take about 1.5 months to 2 months of dedicated study, work on your weak areas, right? and keep practicing your areas of strength as well, right? Which is very important. I've seen students who probably, let's say, the first time they had a score of, let's say, 670, they scored a 48 on quant, right? And they scored a 34 or 33 on verbal, and they want to improve their verbal score. Over the next couple of months, they really studied very hard on the verbal, and they really improved it in the next attempt. But because they didn't practice quant at all, now the quant has suffered, right? So while you are working on your weak areas, make sure that your areas of strength are also not ignored. So you need to maintain your area of strength at that level while working on your weak area. So as I was saying, practice every day. Make sure that you practice every day. And this is one more pro tip. Let's say if whenever you book your GMAT exam, right? If you have booked it, let's say on sometime in July or August, right? Of let's say 10th of August, you have booked it between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Right? Between now and that date, right? Try and, let's say, whenever you get weekends, right? Try and sit during that time and practice, right? Because your mind should be sort of tricked to sit through that time, right? In like without any interruptions, and focus and tackle problems of the GMAT, right? So that is a very good tip that I can give you. Also create a week's plan on an Excel and follow it religiously. And while you are studying at it, don't forget to chill, which is very important. Don't forget to take breaks. Don't burn yourself, right? So all this is very important. Maintaining an error log is also a pro tip. Many people have benefited from maintaining an error log, which is basically a simple Excel sheet that catalogs all the mistakes that you have made while answering a question, right? So let's say you're practicing from different sources, maybe the official guide, maybe the quant review, verbal review, maybe you're using Verzio's materials to practice. But keep an Excel sheet on the side, right? And this can be a format of your choice, of your choosing. So basically it should contain the date, the question type, and the kind of error that you made. The kind of error that could be, let's say, is it an oversight error? Is it, let's say, did you fall for a trap question? Or let's say, did you do a calculation mistake, right? Was it a conceptual error? So we will actually provide you with a sort of an error log format as you work with us. We will give you an error log format that you can use. So it's a very simple Excel sheet. You can come up with on your own, but we'll give you a sample error log that, I found it very useful when I was preparing, right? So, so let us talk about the quant section at a very, very high level. As I said, today we are not going to get into a lot of in-depth nuances, but we'll talk about it at a very high level. So with quant, the basics of quant obviously can be acquired through the official guide and the official guide quant review, right? These are the best books no matter what, right? There are plenty of books in the market. I know a lot of prep companies, they come up with their own books, of course, but the official guide is still sort of the the holy grail for you to follow, right? And the official guide also comes along with two books. One is the official guide quant review and verbal review. So the quant review also goes into a little more in depth of some of the advanced concepts. So do the entire official guide and official guide quant review very religiously. Understand the nuances of the two types of problems. What is a problem solving and what is a data sufficiency question, right? And I have talked about data sufficiency questions in a previous webinar, right? And how do you answer data sufficiency questions? In fact, we did a data sufficiency question. So yeah, in quant advanced, There are certain areas where probably the official guide and quant review will not be enough, right? So also be resourceful. Apart from us, Versio will obviously help you with special focus on some conceptual, to build conceptual clarity and handle those complex areas. So that is definitely something that we will help you with, because we realize that the official guide is not enough to tackle all the advanced areas. You could also use some of the free resources. There's no harm. It's free for everyone. GMAT Club, beat the GMAT. Use them wisely. Use them as much as you want to. No problem with that. These are free resources. So yeah. So pretty much this is okay. This is one of my favorite parts of the webinar. I always come up with a sample question for you to sort of dabble into. This is a PS stands for problem statement, and I want you to take a shot at it. We will put you on a timer and we'll see how many of you get it correct. Even if you do not get it correct, no problem. You haven't started your preparation. I just want you to get a feel of the question and sort of just dabble with it. So having said that, you can, your time starts now. And in about a minute and a half, a poll should come up. You should be able to answer there. And in a minute and a half, we'll close the poll. Only 15 answers have come in and we are close to 3 minutes. So this is the dilemma sometimes that, I mean, you'll face on the GMAT. There is no skipping the question. You have to take your best guess and move forward. So if you cannot solve it yet, I would suggest take a guess. Just take a guess, because I'm going to close the poll very soon. 20 responses have come in. Can we get a few more? I'm not getting any more responses. I think I'll end the polling right now. Last chance. I'm going to, okay, great. I'm going to share the results. So about 50% of you have answered it correctly. It is in fact E. I saw some very quick answers coming in for D. It's like almost instantaneously, right? So I don't know how you answered it so correctly, but unfortunately it's wrong. So yeah, there's some answers for B and C. Both of them are wrong, of course. Yeah, E is the right answer. For those who have got it correctly, done it correct, job well done. And for those who haven't, as I said, nothing to worry. We are just getting started. We are going to sort of give you a systematic way to approach these problems and get them correct. I'll quickly sort of help you with how to approach this problem. So you have been given two people, Bill and Ted, right? And what is the distance that they are covering? Each of them is covering a 240 mile, right? Bike race. What is the speed, right? And it says that Bill's average speed is 5 miles slower than Ted's. So if Ted's speed is X miles per hour, then Bill's speed would be X minus 5, right? Then in that case, what is the time taken by Bill? That would be 240 by X minus 5. And what is the time taken by Ted? That would be 240 by X. So I know time taken by Bill and Ted both. And I know that if Ted completed the race 4 hours sooner, which basically means that Bill took more time than Ted. So Bill's time is more than this by 4 hours. Okay, I can also write this as X minus 5 minus 1 by X is equals to 1 by 60. How did I do it? I took 240 common and then brought it on the other side. So you have to basically solve this quadratic equation. Okay, now you could solve for the quadratic equation and then sort of get the right answer. But at this point, I would use the strategy of looking through the answer choices, right? What is that one value of, now what have I been asked to, which is also very important, never forget, what is Bill's average speed, right? So basically Bill's speed is X minus 5, right? So basically what I have been asked to find is x minus 5, which basically means that x would be like, okay, 17.5, 17, 15, 12.5, whatever, because I know that x is greater, Ted's time is greater. Just by doing some very, let's say, of course, with practice, you will get there. You will know that if I do a 1 by 15 minus 1 by 20, I will get a 1 by 60, because 60 will be my LCM, 15, 4 minus. So, okay, so this will be 1 by 60, right? So, of course, it will take some time for you to get to this level where you will understand by looking at the answer choices, right? A little conceptual depth of how to find LCMs and what are the two numbers that you can take in the denominator, using which you can get an LCM of 60, and thereafter you can solve for it and get 1 by 60. That will take a little bit of practice, but you basically get the idea. So I'll get back to the presentation mode now, right? So those who have gotten it correct, well done. Those who have not gotten it correct, no problem. As I said, it's this easy. GMAT doesn't test you on standard 11, 12 questions. There's no complex algebra. There is no complex, let's say, there's no calculus, right? So you don't have to worry. Everything, these are all questions that you have studied in your standard 8, 9, and 10. Basically, it's getting back on the saddle, getting back into practice and solving these. So let's move on then. Coming to the verbal section now. Now remember, GMAT is administered by GMAC, which is the Graduate Management Admission Council. That is a body that is established in the US. And this test was designed to admit American students into their management graduate degrees. So the level of English is sort of appropriate for them. I'm not saying that our level of English is bad, but there are obvious differences between native speakers who are native speakers, speakers who are, let's say, whose mother tongue is English, and people from, let's say, America, people from UK, people from Australia, New Zealand. They are all considered native speakers. In fact, it's a standard term used in GMAC parlance, right, in their lexicon. And we are not considered non-native speakers. So which is also the reason that once you take your GMAT and once you apply to the American universities, you might also have to take the TOEFL. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we might have to give comparatively a little more effort in mastering the verbal section than the quant section, because like our quant is generally good. And I mean Indians. Our quant is generally good. We do not study verbal the way generally Americans study in their middle school and high school. So this is where it needs a lot of detailed attention, right? So critical reasoning and reading comprehension, right? These are of course two areas where you will have to solve a lot of solved examples, right? So pick up the official guide and go through the solved examples, and this will give you a basic idea to begin with, right? As I said, today we are just talking about how to get you off the blocks. For sentence correction, however, just going through sort of solved examples won't help you initially. So for sentence correction, you need some theoretical guidance. So you need to first read and understand the basic grammatical rules of, let's say, what are verb tenses, subject-verb agreement, right? What are pronoun agreement, right? What are the right idiomatic expressions, right? What is parallelism? What are noun modifiers, verb modifiers, all of that stuff. So that will take a little bit more time. So sentence correction probably takes the most amount of time to master, but once you do it, it is one of the more scoring areas in your in your verbal section, right? Critical reasoning is also very scoring, right? Because it is, again, as the name suggests, it's critical reasoning. It's your ability to think logically. So sometimes even without any formal training, if you just apply your, let's say, logical reasoning skills, you'll be able to solve a critical reasoning question. And in order to just demonstrate that, let's get into that, right? So this is a sample critical reasoning question, right? And just go through it. And again, I'll give you about, we say 2 minutes, we end up giving you more. Just go through it, enjoy solving it, take a shot at it, and we'll give you some time, and we'll open the polls for you to answer this. I think we can end the polling. We have got, if you have still not decided, just mark something. I'm going to end the polling now in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I'm going to share the results, and the results are quite interesting, right? So before I give you, so A is in fact the right answer. Okay. So people who have gotten it correct. Okay, good. Well done. But what was I saying right now? So when I gave you the quant question, and both of these questions probably are about the same level, right? Or a 650 level question on the GMAT. But about 50% of you, 50% got the right answer in quant, whereas the success on the verbal is a little less. I mean, on the verbal side, only the 33% of you got the same level of question right. Because, I mean, this is where we need to sort of develop those skills of, there's a structure of how to handle these questions. So I'll quickly go through it again, right? Help you with a way to sort of structure this. So in all critical reasoning questions, and I'm not getting into how to solve critical reasoning question, that takes about 3 to 4 sessions in itself, but giving a very, let's say, quick primer on it. In all critical reasoning questions, what you will have is a premise and a conclusion, right? So first try and identify those premises and conclusions. So the first premise of this is that in order to, so this, remember this, to attract new members away from other fitness clubs. Okay. What has Fitness Town done? They have launched a new marketing campaign. So the first premise is they have launched a new marketing campaign in which new member receives a free locker rental, free fitness and consultation, and unlimited use of tanning beds. So this is my premise 1. I'll call it P1. Okay. Now Fitness Town's marketing team claims that the campaign has been a huge success since its membership has already increased 20% in the first 2 weeks. So membership has increased 20% in the first 2 weeks of campaign. This is my premise 2, P2. Okay. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is that they have been able to attract members from other fitness clubs in the city. So sometimes in the question stem, you might have the conclusion stated first and then the premise, or you'll have a premise, then conclusion, then again some other premise, or you'll have all the premises and conclusion at the end, which is the easiest to identify. But in this case, the conclusion is at the beginning, right? So they have started this only because they wanted to attract members from other fitness clubs, right? So this is the conclusion. Now, always remember the premises and the conclusion. There will be multiple premise, one conclusion, and they will all be stated in the question stem. These are all stated in the question stem. So you have 2 premises, 1 conclusion here. What you will also have in addition to a premise and a conclusion, or multiple premises and a conclusion, is you will have an assumption. And assumptions are never stated, right? But the simple assumption here is that because they started this free locker rental, free fitness consultations, and unlimited use of the tanning beds, right? Membership has increased 20%, and these memberships have come from other fitness clubs. So assumption, I have to write the assumption, is that membership I'll increase means stolen customers. Okay. So that means they have been able to steal customers. This is the assumption, underlying assumption, that by doing this, they have seen an increase in membership, and these new members have all come from other fitness clubs. Now that is an assumption. We do not know. So if I were to weaken the argument, I have to look for an answer choice that weakens this assumption, right? If I were to prove that membership increase hasn't happened because of stolen customers, or the members did not come from other fitness clubs, then I can sort of weaken the argument, right? So I have to look for something that sort of weakens it, right? So let me look through all the answer choices. Almost all of Fitness Town's new members had never visited a fitness club before they were enticed by Fitness Town's new member. Now this is interesting because this tells me that all of Fitness Town's new members, they were not members of any fitness clubs. So if this is true, then I can clearly say that the marketing team's claim that the new members of the 20% new members that they see, that they have and this is because of the new marketing campaign that they've run, and they've been able to successfully steal members from other fitness club is not correct. So this is definitely interesting, but I'll not mark it straight away. So I'll keep it handy, right? Most of Fitness Town's new members do not intend to use the free service offered in the campaign. This is sort of an irrelevant answer choice. I would say this is irrelevant. Fitness Town's investors hope to increase membership by 50% within the first month. Again, this is irrelevant. How much they hope to increase within the first month of the campaign is sort of irrelevant. We are talking of the new members that have already come in, right? And what is the reason attributed to that? Fitness Town's new marketing campaign is identical to its previous. This is probably one of the biggest irrelevant statements. I don't know what was the previous marketing campaign. And even if it was, what bearing it had on adding new members, I do not know. Is absolutely out of context. Studies show that people typically cancel their fitness club memberships within the first year, even if they did. We are not talking of whether they would cancel after joining, they would cancel. We are talking of why did they join in the first place? So this is again irrelevant. So if you look through all the answer choices, this is pretty much the only answer choice that attributes the increase in membership to not to stolen customers, but to something else, because it clearly states that the new members had never visited a fitness club before. They were not working in some other club. So therefore, the marketing team cannot claim that the increase in the membership is because of this new campaign that they have run, right? So this is how you sort of systematically solve a CR problem. Identify the premises, identify the conclusion, right? Identifying premise and conclusion is relatively easy, but identifying an assumption is something that you have to do because assumptions are not stated, right? So, and then you have to look for arguments that either weaken that assumption or strengthen that assumption. And that is strengthening the argument is also another type of questions equally asked on the GMAT. So this is how you systematically break down. You have a framework to solve this question, and that will give you more confidence instead of just maybe trusting your gut or instincts to get to the right answers. I'm not saying you have done that. Maybe many of you have followed this format. And if you have done it, well and good. So let's move on then. Is there a question related to this slide that we can take? Okay, but what if what if new membership doesn't mean stolen customers?
Yes, sir, that was my question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is exactly what what I'm trying to say. If I can conclusively prove, if basically if any of these statements, right, what is it saying? That which of the following, if true, which means that this is what you're saying and what I'm saying is pretty much the same thing. It can be new customers too, and that is exactly what is happening here, right? Almost all of Fitness Town's new members had never visited a fitness club before, so they are all new customers, right? So they did not have a frame of reference, or they were not part of any other fitness club. So the marketing team cannot claim that because we have run this marketing campaign with all these features, we have been able to sort of draw customers from other fitness clubs. No, that is not, the marketing team cannot claim that,
So
because these are all new customers.
yes, sir. So can't we say that we have attracted potential customers from the other fitness clubs?
No, because it's clearly said, A clearly says that they had never visited a fitness club before.
So, but they were potential customers, right? So either, I mean, we have attracted them from choosing any other fitness clubs. That's what I'm saying.
That we cannot say. I mean, did they survey other fitness clubs? We are not talking of survey. We are talking of whether they already were part of a fitness club. See, this market size is a constant. The people who go to the gym today, right now, let's say, is more or less like standard number of people. Let's say 2 or 3 major fitness clubs in the US, right? 24/7 fitness, LA fitness, whatever it is. Now, if 24/7 this Fitness Town wants to take customers, gather more customers, they'll have to take customers from these 2 fitness clubs, right? So if marketing team is saying that, okay, I have been able to I have run this campaign and I've now gathered new customers, and these new customers have come from LA Fitness and 24/7 fitness, right? But now I have data saying that, well, all these, you were claiming that all these people have come from other fitness clubs, but they were not part of any fitness clubs to begin with. So it was not because of your marketing campaign that they had come, because the marketing campaign has a certain objective. The objective of the marketing campaign was to gather customers, attract customers from other fitness clubs.
Yes, sir.
And even if you have sort of been able to gather more customers, acquire more customers, does not mean that it's a success. Did you acquire it for the right reason? No. Maybe it was because of some other reason that they came in. So moving on then. Okay, so very important, once you finish your quants section, once you finish your verbal section, right, individually need to, I would say, first tackle it. I mean, it's good to tackle one section at a time. Maybe start with quant. Once you get to a certain level of proficiency with quant, and let's say finish 80% of your syllabus in quant, then you can start dabbling with verbal, right? So that is our strategy at Versio as well. We'll first get you started with quant, complete the entire quant syllabus, and then get you started with verbal. It's not possible for you to sort of constantly sort of switch contexts, right, as they say. So once you finish the individual sections completely, then it is time for you to do full length practice tests. I call them FLTs, and these you should take towards the end of your preparation, right? So pace them well. And of course, let's say if you book your tests, if you book your GMAT date today, right, you have to go to mba.com to book your GMAT date, right? So as soon as you pay your fee, book your GMAT date, schedule your exam, you are going to get 2 tests free from mba.com. mba.com is the official sort of website. It is run by GMAT, as I was saying, the official body that administers the GMAT. So they give you a GMAT starters kit, right? That comes with 2 free tests, just 2 free tests. So this is a strategy that I mean, I've seen many of my friends, my juniors, I advise all of my students to do this, that you'll get 2 tests from mba.com. Often it's a good strategy. You take one of those tests without any preparation at all, right? Why do we do that? Because then it gives you a sense of where you are right now, right? Without any preparation, what is your sort of level of proficiency? Now that, let's say, without any preparation, you might not score very well, and don't get disheartened by it. You might, without any preparation, without absolutely any preparation, you might score like a 500, for instance, and don't get disheartened by it. Let's say your target score is a 700 or 720. Now that gives you an idea of where you stand today, and what's your target score is 720. So let's say that's a journey of a 220 points that you have to make, and it's very easy. I will not, don't get bogged down by that large number, don't get overwhelmed by it. People have, like, more, everybody, almost everybody can make that journey if they put in the right effort. So take that first test, get an assessment, do an evaluation of where you stand without any preparation. Let's say you are at 500. Don't take the other test after that. Then start your preparation, do your quant, do your verbal, and then start your full length test. And when it comes to full length tests, Versio is also going to provide you with a few full length tests for you to gauge and assess your proficiency level, right? Along with that, so while you're taking these tests with Versio, you will be able to sort of assess yourself and sort of course correct, do an analysis of what you did wrong in the exam, and make sure that you do not do those same mistakes again, and probably practice on the weak areas. So that way your score increases. And the weekend before your exam, right, the last test that you should take again should be that MBA.com test, right? Remember, because that these two tests that are provided by MBA.com, these are provided by GMAT, right? They are the governing body. They know the algorithm of scoring better than anybody else. So it's better to take that second test at the very tail end of your preparation. So, and that score that you get is going to be very close to the score that you get on D-Day, basically going to be very close to the score that you get on your day of GMAT. So that will give you an idea of where you might land up, right? What score you might land up with. So as I said, the last test should be given on the weekend before your exam. Pace all your tests well, right? Space them well. And most importantly, one pro tip is each of these full length tests, even with MBA.com, they'll come with the AW and IR section as well. Many people, what they think is because anyway, the verbal section and the quant section are the only two sections that are scored, right, that count towards your score of 800. I will skip these sections, but don't do that. Take it like you would have to take it on your D-Day, right? Because remember, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. You have to sit in that exam hall for more than 3 hours to take that entire exam, right? Even your mental strength should be there to focus through IR, through AWA, and then get into quant and verbal, right? You have a few options of, let's say, ordering the sections right now, but still these are compulsory sections. Just because they're not counted towards your score of 800 doesn't mean that you can skip them. So you have to build that sort of strength to sit through those and still focus through your quant and verbal and do exceedingly well on in each section. So it's good if you can practice the AW and IR section as well during your mock tests, during a full length test that Versio gives you or MBA.com gives you, right? So don't skip them. I've seen many students skip them. They say that, well, it's not important and doesn't count. I'll just get to the good stuff. I'll just get to the stuff that matters. But don't skip those sections, because on exam day, you'll find it very difficult to focus throughout the exam because you haven't practiced for that long. You have never sat through the exam for 3 hours because you always used to skip the IR and AWS section. Don't do that. Practice the entire exam, and that is how you build strength. So that brings me to my last sort of slide, how Versio can help you. Of course, our study plan is also sort of, the duration is spanned across 4 months. And if you have seen my first, I think it was the second slide, where I said that 4 months is the approximate amount of time that you would need to prepare for the GMAT. So we have structured our course exactly for 4 months. This should sort of get you started and get you finished right in time. So we'll have smart tips from top scorers. Of course, I'll be doing a lot of teaching. I'll help you through those conceptual clarity, building on those strengths, working on those weaknesses. And not just that, we'll not just stop at one as soon as you take your GMAT. We'll also help you. Remember, applying to American business schools means that it is very different from CAT, right? So for every school, whether you're applying to Chicago Booth or Duke or UNC Kennan Flagler, like every school in the US, you have to apply separately with your GMAT score. And you have to write a couple of essays, you have to write a statement of purpose, you have to, let's say, you have to prep for the interviews, which are also very grueling. They hold equal weightage. All of these hold equal weightage as your GMAT. So it is, admission to US business school is not as easy as, I wouldn't say as easy, it's very different from that, from how it works in India. It's a more holistic process, right? It's not that you get a score of, I'll give you an interesting fact. I've seen students getting 800 out of 800 and getting rejected at Stanford. Okay, so because they could not show enough diversity in there, or they didn't write their essays well and all of that stuff. Stanford somehow rejected them. So it is, and they probably accepted somebody with a 680 score because they could, let's say, project their story beautifully. They could create a good narrative. They wrote their statement of purpose really well. They had good extracurriculars, all of that stuff. So we'll help you build that story as well. Pratik, I am done here. If you want to jump in and add something, feel free.
Hello, sir.
Tell me.
Yes, sir. My name is Akash. So can I ask? I have some few questions. Can I ask them right now?
Sure.
Yeah, sir. So you mentioned that there are two sections like IR and AWN, I guess, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So, sir. So you mentioned that. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if those sections are not they don't add to your score, and instead that you still have to sit through that through the section in the exams, can't we just mark anything and move towards the sections which actually count, or is there a negative marking in all those questions?
Good question, Akash. I had answered this myself in one of the previous webinars. Don't do that. Never do that. It is never advisable to just let's say answer anything in your IR, right? AWA anyway, you have to write an essay, and I don't know how you would not write an essay. But IR, if you are saying that you just mark something and move on, that's never a good strategy. I'll tell you why. Because you never know how the AdCom, the admission committee where you apply, views these IR and AWS section, right? For instance, I'll give you an example. There were two students who had both had scores of 720, right? Both had really good CGPAs. Both had let's say good extracurriculars. Both had the same kind of background, and sort of their essays were equally good. Their interviews were scored equally as well. And the outcome was sort of a split between, let's say, who should we admit, right? And this was one of the STEM MBAs, right? So then they looked at their IR scores, right? And they felt that one person had much better score in IR than the other, which gave them a reason to believe that they might do well in business school. Considering that it's a STEM program, there's a lot of, let's say, logical, critical reasoning skills that might come into play, a lot of data analysis that might come into play. And this student might do exceedingly well, considering that that's a requirement. Like it's the logical reasoning skill part is quite heavy in STEM programs. So they said, well, we'll use this basically as a tiebreaker, right? So everything else remaining same, they might use it as a tiebreaker.
And so is GMAT only limited to American business schools? Let's say I want to apply to some German business school or something like that.
Absolutely. And the GMAT is the most widely accepted sort of exam.
So
score.
why is everyone just stressing about American schools? Why are not anyone talking about any other schools?
No, I mean there are good business schools. Some of the top-ranked business schools, for instance, INSEAD, right? INSEAD is based in Fontainebleau, Paris, right? It's been ranked, I think, in the top 3 in the last 10 years, right? Consistently. So you talk of London Business School, you talk of Oxford Side, right? Judge, Cambridge. So all of these are very good schools in the UK. Cranfield, I've got many friends inside Oxford who went to Side. So all these are really good schools. See, the point is, I don't know what is the point you're trying to make, but American business schools are still probably the largest in numbers, right? So, and in one way or the other, the scope of work, the nature of work that you probably get post MBA is much more lucrative than in many other countries, right? So that's probably one of the reason you hear a lot of noise around American business schools. But it's as I said, a lot of these other schools, NUS Singapore, even ISB, IMA, they accept GMAT, right, for their 1-year program, which are equally difficult to get into, very, very competitive, right? And some of the, let's say, profiles, and since many of you are interested in salaries, even salaries are exceedingly good. By purchasing power parity numbers, they are as good as American business school. In fact, if I was correct, I think this year Financial Times, as per the Financial Times ranking, the IMA 1-year program stands second after Chicago Booth in the entire world in terms of salaries by purchasing power parity. So salaries are really good, profiles are really good, even if you graduate from IMA, ISB, IMABC, ISB, these 4 schools, especially in India, NUS Singapore, INSEAD Singapore. INSEAD has a campus in Singapore, which is very good. In Europe, of course, Spain has a couple of good schools. Germany has a couple of good schools. GMAT scores are accepted in Canada as well. Rotman is a very good school. I'm just throwing some names at you, which is coming to my mind, where all my friends, so many of my friends have gone. So just to let you know that GMAT is the most widely accepted sort of score all over the world, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in Asia, even right now in India, all over Europe, all over North America, even South America.
And so one more thing, so I've heard that GMAT score is applicable for 5 years or something like that.
Yes,
Is it
5
true or
years.
something?
Yes. You take the GMAT score
Okay.
once, and it's applicable for 5 years. And also, let's say you take, you get, let's say you take it first, and you are not satisfied with your score, you take it again, right? So GMAT will have 2 scores. Whenever you log into your MBA.com profile, you'll see both of your scores. And how you send your scores to each business school is, let's say you want to apply to a particular business school. There's a way to send your score, download that and send your score. The school will receive both of your scores, actually, the previous one and this one. And whichever is the highest of the 2, they will consider that. So even if you have scored, let's say 500 in the previous one and 750 in the next one, right? That's a major jump. But there is not going to be any negative marks because you scored 500 in the previous one. They're not going to look at your application any differently. They're just going to look at the highest score, and they're going to judge you based on that. And it's valid for 5 years.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Except if you score at 800, then they do not let you take the retake the test for 5 years. But the score is still valid for 5 years. But you will not be able to take another attempt. And I don't understand why you would take another attempt. If you
No, sir. I mean, in today JEE Mains, people are also doing that. After receiving 100 percentile, they are giving again and again. So I don't see any point there also.
Yeah. And as I said, it's the application process is much more holistic. As I said, I've seen students with 800 score on the GMAT, and they have gotten rejected by Stanford. And why I said Stanford is, out of all the top three, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Stanford is notorious for rejecting 800 score people. So that name comes to mind all the time. So just getting 800 is not enough. You have to still put in the effort of writing those essays and putting in a good application, writing your SOPs. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. One more thing, sir. So you said your program through your program. So you will just help us crack GMAT, or would you help us like for cracking? You'll also teach us how to crack the interviews or all the SOPs and other things you have mentioned.
Yeah, we are on that slide. That's why it's written guidance for college applications and essay
Yes.
writing.
Can I just step in here? Yes.
Sure.
So Akash, thank you very much. So Akash, as you have been asking, yes, we do provide assistance for the college applications as well as essay writing. Anything until you reach the point where like you reach the university, will be with you. It will just one-on-one guidance will be provided by Versio as well. If you take this is all part of the package. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I guess we have come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Roman. And it was like I hope all of you have learned like really good points, like having a tips and tricks, and I'm sure like you can attend our further webinars as well. So and we have shared the feedback form in the chat box. So if you can please fill it, that would be really helpful. It will help us help you better. So the previous webinars, like a YouTube channel link has been shared. You can go through our webinars. And Romit Sain is our mentor, and you would be like if you have take up this GMAT coaching, you will be studying under him, and you have seen how good his teaching is. So I'm sure you'll have a great learning experience. And you can visit to our website and download the brochure on the GMAT as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So in the next webinar, we'll sort of, that will be a part 2 of strategies for GMAT, and we'll probably, we'll try and get into more in-depth strategies that will help you in your GMAT. And if you have any feedback, if you want to sort of want me to talk about anything in particular in that webinar, put in your feedback and we'll try and visit those. Thank you, and it was great hosting the webinar. I hope you took some good points from here, and that'll be all. Me signing off. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, I joined late because I had a class right now. So, will the recording be shared, or how can I access it? Any information?
Yes, sure. We'll be putting it on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll share you the links for that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.